F124 driver career mode for season 2, round number 14, the Brazilian Grand Prix, or the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, however you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. Yes, it is the, I believe, final sprint weekend of the season, and we haven't had a sprint for a little while, but we are now here back in Brazil. We were here last season, of course. I don't quite remember how it went, but yeah, we'll see how we go here today. McLaren have had a little bit of an up boost in performance, not massively. We're still third behind Red Bull and Aston Martin, but have closed in a little bit towards them. Apart from that, RB have actually jumped up from behind Haas to now ahead of Haas and Williams. So they're kind of the next best of the rest car, if you don't really count Mercedes as next best to the rest, because they are a fair way behind the top 4 teams. Or top 3 teams? No, top 4 teams. So SQ1, of course, sprint weekend, so we have a sprint qualifying and a sprint session to do as we go through sector 1, and we are quickest in SQ1 here. Pretty good lap time, 1.3 tenths ahead of Charles Leclerc in second. Zhou Guanyu in the Sauber last, both Alpines out as well as Stroll in the RB and Sargent in the Williams. So despite that RB apparently being the kind of next best car after the top 5 teams, Stroll is still out in SQ1. Through sector 2 here, and yep, sun is shining. There is no rain expected for this whole weekend, so you know, should be fine to be, well actually no, that is a lie. There is a potential of a little bit of rain right at the end of the main Grand Prix race, so it's literally right at the end though, so that hasn't really, you know, change my thoughts on setup or anything. We're going fully dry for this whole thing. We're quickest in SQ2 as well, almost 2.5 tenths ahead of Leclerc there. And then it is Tsunoda in the RB, Albon in the Williams, both Hasses and Bottas in the other Sauber out in SQ2 there. So kind of what you expected. Decent result from Tsunoda there, showing that that RB does have a little bit more pace than Stroll was giving it in SQ1. And then as we come to the end of our SQ3 lap time, after my first lap I sat third, and we end up being third anyway. We're actually beaten by Perez in SQ2 here, but by the smallest of margins. What is that, 6,000th of a second he beats us by, and it's Charles Leclerc on sprint pole for the Ferrari. Very, very close, within a tenth for the top 3, almost within a tenth for the top 4, so that is the sprint qualifying grid for this race.
Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. A fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday, and it's put him on pole. Sergio Perez lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Shaw, Oscar Piastri, Verstappen, Sainz, Norris, Fernando Alonso, Hamilton, Russell, Tsunoda, Albon, Magnussen, Hülkenberg, Bottas, Stroll, Ocon, Gasly, Sargent, and Zhou Guanyu. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out.
Here we go, it is sprint time in Brazil from P3 on the grid behind my teammate, which is something that hasn't happened that much this season as we get underway, and it's actually a really good start for Perez. He's already alongside and slightly ahead of Leclerc into turn 1, but we have Piastri gone for a move on us, so it's 2 by 2. We slightly cut the corner through turn 3, and that gives us a bad line out of there, and I also didn't want to, you know, take advantage of cutting that corner, and it means that we actually fall behind Piastri. We've lost the position. We look to the inside, but he defends into the next corner, and we have lost that position down to P4 at the start. That is not what we would have wanted. We want to make positions at the start here, not lose them. And I really have to have a good position and a good finish here to still have a chance at the championship. It is quite close at the top, but Leclerc is a little ways ahead. So is Piastri, so I really need a good result here, and mainly in the main Grand Prix, to stay in this championship fight. But we have lost the lead, but Perez has taken, not lost the lead, sorry, we have lost third place, but Perez has taken the lead on this first lap, which is pretty big for him. He hasn't won a race this entire career mode so far, and he's been a fair way off us in the races as well, so and in qualifying. So can he put in a good performance here in the Brazil sprint and carry that on to the feature race tomorrow, the Grand Prix tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see, but for now, it's P4 for us. Looking at the start once again here from Perez's kind of point of view somewhat, he just gets a great launch off the line. It's up the inside of Leclerc into turn 1. They then fight side by side through this S's section. But Perez is already ahead as they now head down this next little straight here and goes a little bit defensive to stay in the lead. It only takes, though, until lap 3 for Leclerc to have another look at Perez to retake the lead of this race, and he goes to the inside into the left-hander. He's alongside Perez, kind of hangs him out to dry a little bit around that corner. And Perez cannot stay ahead, which means Leclerc retakes the lead of this sprint. Now Yuki Tsunoda down to P11, actually where he started, but he has a spin around turn 1 on lap number 5. That's going to plummet him down the order and stop any chances of him finishing either in the top 10 or in the points. Just a bit too much power around turn 1, just keeps his foot pinned as well. Spins the car around, no damage for him, but he falls down to the back. Now Lando Norris, currently in 8th position, tries around the outside of Hamilton, then ducks to the inside to go for a nice move up the inside into turn 1. Hamilton tries to keep the position, but will not be able to keep that from Norris, and that is Norris up to P7. He's not had a great season, Lando Norris, but actually it's not over because Hamilton then dives up the inside of the next corner to get the position straight back again. So Norris still not having a great time here. His teammate is only up a couple of positions ahead of him, but there is a bit of a gap. We continue on halfway through the race, still just kind of stuck behind the top 3. We're bringing Verstappen and Sainz with us. It's kind of a 6-car fight at the front here at the moment. There's then quite a big gap between Sainz and I believe it's Russell or maybe Hamilton. I think Hamilton is actually the lead Mercedes. Yes, he is. But there is a almost 3-second gap between 6th and 7th. We have Zhou in 17th currently, running towards the back of the grid. He has a spin just like Tsunoda did, but at a different point of the track, and that's going to demote him right down to the back as well. Same thing as Tsunoda, just too much power around that corner, and that puts him all the way around. He is now way down back there. Hamilton now going to come under pressure from Norris once again, I think. Doesn't quite go for a move into turn 1, but Hamilton just does the exact same thing that Tsunoda did round turn 1. Too much power, and that's going to knock Hamilton out of the points. Very unfortunate for him. Was looking to score a couple of points there, but unfortunately that puts him all the way down to 19th position. Now Carlos Sainz is having a go at Verstappen here. I've heard over the radio that Verstappen has an issue because he was right on the back of us and he lost a couple of seconds and has now fallen behind Carlos Sainz, who will now try and catch back up to us. And now Norris is under pressure from Fernando Alonso for 8th position. Of course, he got that extra position from Hamilton after he spun out, but now is looking to be demoted back down to 8th once again for only 1 point in this race. But he's hanging on with Alonso here, but around the next right-hander cannot get ahead of him, and that puts Norris down to P8. But as they head onto the final lap of this sprint race, Norris is going to dive to the inside to try and get that position back on Alonso. Let's remember that the Red Bull is supposedly the quickest car on R&D at the moment. They potentially have the quickest car here. Verstappen won the last race in Mexico, so Norris is looking to capitalize there, and he does manage to get ahead of Alonso for P7. And final lap for us, Leclerc kind of staying ahead in front there with a bit of a gap to Perez. Piastri right on the tail of Perez right now, but I don't think it's going to quite be enough to take a position from him. And in the end, it's going to be Leclerc who wins this sprint race. Big for him in this championship. Perez manages 2nd, which is a great result for him. Piastri 3rd. We unfortunately lose 3rd position from qualifying and finish 4th in this sprint race. Not what we wanted, especially for this championship. Of course, not a massive amount of points on offer for the sprint anyway, but it could mean so much in the championship. It could, we are still in with a shot of the Drivers' Championship here, but we lose points again to Piastri and Leclerc, which is not what we wanted. As you can see, very, very close at the top there. Top 4 really, really close to each other, going down to 5th place for Sainz, 6th for Verstappen, 7th for Norris, so he does pick up 2 points, and Fernando Alonso picks up the final point of the sprint. As we get into the main qualifying session for the Grand Prix. We have a bit of a slide around turn 1 on this particular lap. Not the greatest there, but a better exit out of turn 2 maybe, but then we're losing time again on our best time that we'd already set in Q1, because our first time was not amazing. We're only up in P7, down to P8 now as Leclerc goes quickest, but we're just trying to, trying to make sure we get through this Q1 session first of all. We should be fine with the lap we'd already done, but I just wanted to make sure. We end up going P2 in Q1 there, Perez down there in P8. Sargent is actually the slowest this session, with both Saubers also out and both Hasses also out in Q1, so not great for them. This time both RBs managed to get through to Q2, so they'll be very happy with that considering what their supposed pace is. In Q2 now, and I only did one lap in Q2 because the one lap I did was a pretty decent one, heading around this long left-hander now. Sector 2 seems to be a pretty good sector for us. We make up a lot of time through there. I think our car's set up maybe a little bit more for the corners than it is for the straights, but we still have some decent straight line speed as well as we head down to the start-finish line. Cross the line, we go quickest at that point in time, and it is quickest overall as well, almost 2/10 quicker than Piastri in second. Perez also up there in third, so still showing that we have good pace in our car. Both Alpines, both RBs, and Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes out in Q2. It's happened a few times for Hamilton this season. It's not what he's going to be wanting. Is he going to change team after this season? Because Mercedes have pretty consistently this season been, they haven't been up there fighting for wins, barely even for podiums. Ferrari, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, and McLaren and Aston Martin have considerably been, better than Mercedes this season. So, will this be the season maybe that Hamilton decides to switch it up for Season 3 2026? We'll have to wait a couple of more races to see what the grid does look like for next season. But at the moment, in Q3 here, we're currently sitting P3, Leclerc's on provisional pole from Verstappen, then it's myself, Sainz, and Norris P5, so Norris putting in a better qualifying lap so far here. But we are improving quite a lot on this second lap in Q3. I am just absolutely going for it here. I'm really throwing the car around and getting it right on the most part. We're just over a 10.5 up on our best time earlier, and we go quickest by 0.06 of a second to Charles Leclerc in second place. We do have pole position. It's then Verstappen in third, Sainz fourth. Norris will be happy with fifth position, with then Alonso, Perez sadly all the way down in seventh, but still only 0.3 off me. Then Piastri all the way down in eighth, and then Albon beats Mercedes to P9. That could be big for him and Williams, but that is the grid for this Sao Paulo Grand Prix.
Welcome along then to where heroes and history are made. It's where the 2008 title was decided in the very final corner. And just 1 year later, Jenson Button stormed through from 14th on the grid to claim his one and only Drivers' Championship. It's time then for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Interlagos, always a very special race here in Brazil. It's a 2.7 mile circuit with 9 lefts and 6 rights for a total of 15 corners. The fastest lap today should have an average speed of around 135 miles per hour, if, of course, the weather stays dry until the end of the Grand Prix. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Shaw lines up on pole position, and it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Verstappen, Sainz, Norris, Fernando Alonso, Perez, Oscar Piastri, Albon, Russell, Stroll, Ocon, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Gasly, Joe, Hülkenberg, Magnussen, Bottas, and Logan Sargent. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
It's Grand Prix race day in Brazil. 5 red lights are out, and it's time to get going for this Brazilian Grand Prix. It is a decent start for us, but we're having to go defensive to the inside, push Leclerc to the inside, but he gets through on us into turn 1. We had a good start, but still Leclerc had a better one. He had the inside line, and he has taken the lead of this Brazilian Grand Prix. That is not what we wanted. We really need to win this race to keep in this championship. Just to keep in this championship. If we don't win this race, we're probably not going to be in with a shot at the championship after this one, with 2 rounds still to go after this. So we really have to try and get back on terms with Leclerc, but we know we're quick here. We were quick in qualifying. We were quick in sprint qualifying until Q3. It was really, really close anyway. And yeah, we were fine in the sprint, just kind of stuck in a bit of a DRS train, stuck in traffic. So, you know, we know what we can do here. Leclerc's pushing quite a bit on this first lap though, maybe trying to get out of DRS from us before the race starts, but he's not going to quite be able to do that. And we're going to use a decent amount of ERS down this straight here to keep in contention with him once the DRS becomes available this lap around. As we all cross the line, Sainz in third, Verstappen fourth. So Verstappen has actually lost a position to Carlos Sainz at the start here. But heading on to lap number 4 now, and Sainz goes into turn 1, and it's a lockup for the Spaniard. That's going to let Verstappen and Norris through. Both Red Bulls now through on Sainz and up into third and fourth. Looking better for Lando Norris here at the moment, just behind his teammate. Now George Russell in 10th place got out-qualified by Albon in the Williams. Not what he would have wanted to happen, but he's going to rectify that pretty quickly here. Lap number 4, up the inside of the tyre driver and into P9. Like we said, that Mercedes is not really there with the top 4 teams, but he should at least be able to beat a Williams. As lap number 4, we now have Leclerc rise ahead of us. We've gapped Verstappen by over 2 seconds. We're now going to go to the inside to retake the lead of this race. We're back into the lead, fastest lap for us as well on that lap with the help of DRS, and we now lead the Brazilian Grand Prix once again. Lap number 7 heading on to 8. Leclerc's a fair way behind us at the moment, but I'm just harvesting a little bit of energy down the straight, and he kind of comes out of absolutely nowhere and goes for a big dive up the inside into turn 1. We're going to be side by side with him, but we do have the favourable line as we head around the next corner, so we will just about stay ahead. But it was a little bit of a worry there. Now we're getting to this point, and I'm actually a little bit worried, firstly about ERS, because we just don't have the ERS usage, and also about fuel. And we're actually going to kind of let Leclerc get past us here, because fuel's the main worry here. Out front, I'm having to absolutely push and push to keep Leclerc behind me, and we're just using so much fuel. So I thought we'd maybe try and sit behind Leclerc for a few laps, try and manage our fuel a little bit more, but we are going to sense an opportunity to get back past him again on to lap 13. He's still there on the inside, but we go round the outside, managed to retake the lead. We have managed to recover a little bit of fuel on those couple of laps behind him, but it's still going to be very tight in this race. Now Hamilton is sizing up an opportunity on Albon in the Williams to get into the top 10. He had a poor qualifying once again here in Brazil, but we know how good Hamilton is at this track, and he gets ahead of Alexander Albon on that lap and has now got himself up into the points. Now Norris, like I said, currently P4, showing some promise here compared to how he has in previous races, and he's actually going for a move on his teammate Max Verstappen. We haven't seen this really all season, I don't think, with Norris actually fighting Verstappen in equal machinery, and Norris gets ahead of his teammate. Though right there though, but now Sainz is actually sensing an opportunity up the inside too, and he will get past Max Verstappen, but that is Norris up to P3. He would love to keep that position in this race. Now we head into the pits on lap 17, kind of just a little bit of managing with Leclerc there. We are way ahead of P3 Norris, 5.5 seconds before we came into the pits there, so we are a long way ahead, and we are really the only two in the top here coming into the pits. But it's a slow pit stop for us. It's slow on the rear right tyre, and that lets Leclerc retake the lead of this race once again. We did all the hard work to get ahead of him, trying to manage our tyres, trying to manage the ERS, trying to manage the fuel. We were ahead of him, and usually in the pits, if I get a good pit stop, I can actually gain a bit more time on the AI. But of course, this one time, and it always seems to happen when we're leading, we lose the position in the pits to Leclerc. Now, as Norris just takes the lead of the race after we came into the pits, Sainz is going to try and fight him to take this lead of the race. Of course, it is only really, it's not the proper lead because, you know, these guys haven't pitted yet, but Norris is still going to be a little bit annoyed by that with Sainz getting past, and it's actually going to get even worse for Norris because then Alonso, who's kind of come out of nowhere here, is also going to get past Norris, and now he's also got Perez, right on his tail as well, so very close there for that kind of P4, well, kind of P3 down to like P6 positions. Now, lap 20, we still have Leclerc ahead of us. Just at this point in time, I thought, you know what, he's got on passes in the pits. I now just want to try and manage my fuel a little bit because I'm really worried that we're not going to get, if I'm just pushing and pushing, we are not going to get to the end of this race on this amount of fuel. So we've, you know, I'm lifting quite a bit into turn 1, you can see there, and it's easier to do this when you're following a car behind. I can still stay within the DRS zones, but lift into a lot of corners here to you know, keep my fuel going. I have a little look into this corner, but nothing quite there. But then Leclerc, he locks up into the corner. That's going to give us a massive opportunity here. And at that point, I'm like, right, I need to put my foot down for a couple of laps here and consolidate this gap I've got. Now, Lando Norris currently down in P8. Things have not gone well for him. He was up in 3rd. Now, all of a sudden, he's 8th. And a fair way behind his teammate once again. He's now fighting Alonso for P7. Alonso's also been overtaken by Piastri at some point. I think that was in the pits, so that's not great for him either. But I mean, Piastri is the one in with a chance of a championship win here. It's currently 2nd in the championship. Norris wasn't able to quite get past Alonso at that point, but yep, still fighting for that position. We are actually managing our gap pretty well now. Now that Leclerc doesn't have DRS behind us, I can save fuel, and you'll see here into this corner, I'm going to lift off quite early, coast through the corner, and I'm actually not losing too much time doing that. And what I'm kind of doing is every 3 or 4 laps, I do like one push lap, and then I go back to you know, fuel saving again. So it's actually working out pretty well for us. If we were still behind Leclerc or fighting with Leclerc, it was going to be really tough to get to the end of this race, but this has helped us quite a bit here. I do still have to be careful because we're still going to be very tight on fuel here, but yeah, just kind of managing it pretty well at the moment. Now, Piastri has now fought himself his way up into 4th position, fighting now with Carlos Sainz. The pit strategies has worked pretty well for him, and he has now got past Sainz and up into 4th position. But on the penultimate lap, Sainz is going to try and get back past him again for that P4 position. Sainz would really like that. He's not had the best results this season, especially compared to his teammate leading the championship, but this time Sainz gets back up into P4 and he will take that P4 home with him, but Verstappen is too far ahead in P3. And for us, we manage the gap to Leclerc. We actually pull away a little bit, even with some fuel coasting for most of this race, but we are going to come home with the win here in Brazil. That is going to help us in this championship. It's still going to be tight, that is for sure. We're still a fair way behind, but a win here and the fastest lap is surely going to help us. We win the Brazilian Grand Prix. That is what we want. After a bit of a disappointing sprint, that is where we are. Driver of the day, Kevin Magnussen. I don't know what he did, but apparently he made up some positions, but it's a great result for us.
Another superb Sao Paulo Grand Prix comes to an end then, and it's a thoroughly deserved victory.
They led from lights out to the flag at the end, and their race victory was never in doubt, was it? Brilliant stuff by them.
Our winning drivers are on their way to the podium right now. It's been a fantastic race for McLaren, that's for sure. And no doubt, they'll be celebrating tonight.
We needed that win. Of course, we won in Singapore. We then had a DNF in Mexico last time out after not having particularly great pace as well and running 8th for most of the race. But we bounced back here in Brazil with another win. We'll have to see how close it is in the championship. I still think it's going to be a bit of a tight order to get this lead back from Leclerc. But at the moment, we're looking good. Leclerc comes home in P2, which is very big for him in this championship. And Verstappen showing that Red Bull has some better pace here by managing to get on the podium once again. You know, podiums seemed not possible earlier in this season. So for Verstappen to have, I think that's 3 podiums on the bounce, maybe with one of those being a win, that's pretty big for him. We do come away with 7 points more than Leclerc over this whole weekend. Of course, him getting the points on us in the sprint. That is the actual finishing order there, with Piastri managing 5th in the end, but Sainz did manage to get that 4th position. He'll be very happy with that. Perez, my teammate, managing 6th. And then further down the order, yep, Norris managing those 4 points. And I think maybe Albon got a point there. I'm not 100% sure. And in the end, well, Charles Leclerc is still leading the championship, 32 points ahead of Piastri. We are 52 points behind Leclerc, which means that we are, strictly speaking, still in this championship fight, but we would need to win the next 2 races, the final 2 races of the season, with fastest lap in both of them, and Leclerc not score for us to win this championship. So it's not looking very likely, unfortunately. Yeah, we are still in with a chance, but the likelihood of that happening is pretty slim. But anyway, that is going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.